I didn't really want to miss the snowboarding, and although I haven't gone into the figure skating, I have enjoyed the rest of the outdoor events. So won't be here all week long. Wanted to say hi and hope everybody's having fun down south in the snow. Everything I've got will be on Moodle or on videos for the Substitute to Show. Please make sure everybody logs on and checks their Moodle account, and everyone does the assigned exercises. For the hardware class, we will be doing PowerPoints immediately on my return back to class. For the web class, obviously I'll expect to see everything completed as far as the videos uploaded, web pages updated, and then we're going to start doing Dreamweaver as soon as I get back next week. I'd hoped I'd have all that set up and started with you before I left, but that unfortunately did not happen. So I really expect everyone in the web class to have a video slideshow on each of their web pages with available pictures that we've already got on the site, new sports pictures put for every single one of the sports through the fall and the winter, obviously, and any other things you can do to get your pages updated. Cameras are in the bottom right hand drawer desk if you need to get a camera out for you there, and I will be online from the chat and also have forums open, so if you have any questions, please feel free to post them on the forum, or if you see me on the chat, please feel free to come to the chat room and talk to me there. I will open that up anytime I'm online and available on the chat. So I'll see you in a week. Have a nice time. Bye.
There's one thing I wanted to point out this class. I've had a number of students come in and ask me about taking the Advanced Technologies course, which is the follow-on to hardware. I need to point out that I have 20 hardware students and only 5 openings in the Advanced Technologies class, so obviously everyone cannot move on. If you're logged onto Moodle right now, you will see one of these two things. It either says you can take the Advanced Technologies course, or you might be able to take the Advanced Technologies course. Those people that I've identified as being able to take the Advanced Technologies course right now will see that. They'll be able to click on there and they'll read the fact that I've chosen them as the initial fills for that class if they decide to take it. It's given 4th block Brown days, and like I said, there's only 5 openings. If you want to take it, I want you to hit Start or Edit My Journal Entry and type in there, yes, I would like to take the class. If you don't want to take it, I'd like you to type, no, I would not like to take the class. If, however, you see this one that says you might be able to take the Advanced Technologies class, it means basically that it's going to depend on how many of the people that I've said can take it, and then I'm basically going to rank order the rest of the students and go to them one at a time for the ones that said they do want to take it. So again, I want you to click on there and say whether you do or do not want to take the course. Basically, you'll be on a list of potential people, and I'll let you know by the end of the week whether you can or cannot take the class based on who all signed up for it. This ability to move on to Advanced Technology is not grade only. As you can read on there, it's dependent on your work ethic, maturity, ability to work unsupervised, and potential that I've seen in you through the hardware class. If you're someone that I've had to continually talk to, that I've had to look for and find, that gripes and groans about every assignment that you get, possibility is you won't be in that list of that definitely can take it, even if you have 100% of my class. So I just want you to know that. I would love to say I could take everyone, but I can't. So I have to draw some kind of a line and pick certain students to go on for the next group. But just because you're on the might be able doesn't mean you won't. Generally, there's usually 1 or 2 that do get in that are on that list. Because not everyone that's on my other list does take it. They take other classes instead. So you need to do that today. if you don't answer it, I'm going to assume that you do not want to take it. If you have not been told by me or I have not signed your schedule, you will not be able to take it whether you turn it into the counselor or not, because I'll be giving her the list of who was permitted to take the course at the end of this coming week anyway. So please make sure you get that done today. If you don't fill it out, I'm just going to assume you don't want to take the class. Don't take it as an insult if you're on the might be able to list. I had to put a lot of people on that list. Obviously, 3/4 of my hardware students are on that list because I couldn't put everyone. And there's obviously some people on that list that I would enjoy having in my advanced technologies class as well. So please don't take that as an insult or a slander on you if you're on this list. I just need to know who all wants to take it in order to decide who's going to be able to. Thanks.
Okay, because I'm not sure when and if class is ever going to happen again with the weather, I thought I'd go ahead and record the review just in case I end up being on reserves the day we finally have class again. Okay, we're in the memory section. This is a review of the first section. Today's goal is to understand memory. We've done our reading. We've taken our first initial quiz. We've read an additional article on it. But that doesn't mean we've covered it all like I wanted to. So I wanted to go over and make sure by the end of this class, everybody understood memory inside our PCs. This is a slide off of the textbook session. It talks about the different kinds of RAMs, static RAM or SRAM, dynamic RAM, and really when we're talking about memory inside of a PC, we're talking about dynamic RAM. We're talking about memory that has to be refreshed every few milliseconds. It constantly is being refreshed. The memory controller is what does the refreshing, and it's stored in what we're calling DIMMs or RIMs, and that's the kind of memory that when we talk about upgrading, we talk about testing, when we ask how much memory a PC has, that's the kind of memory we're talking about. We're talking about dynamic RAM that's inside the PC and that is really determining how fast the PC performs. Okay, so when we're talking about main memory, we're talking about DRAM. When we're talking about cache memory, that's when we're talking about that SRAM. And we talked about that's really a function of the processor itself, how much cache it has. And we talked about the difference between Celeron processors and Pentium processors, and the fact that different kind of processors have different kinds of cache memory. And that's when we were talking about the L1, L2, and L3 cache memory. And that memory stays there, the CPU puts it there, the information stays there, the CPU takes it out, CPU rewrites it. It doesn't have to continue to be refreshed like our main memory has to be continually refreshed. Okay? So, for the remainder of this conversation, I'm really talking about main memory, I'm really talking about DRAM that we're using inside of our PCs. Now, the textbook talked about different technologies that have come about with DRAM. And that's one of the things you're going to be talking about in your PowerPoint presentations is what kind of technology different kinds use, whether it's synchronous RAM, whether it's EDO, whether it's error correcting, whether it uses RAM bus, whether it uses DDR, DDR1, DDR2, DDR3 RAM. That's what it's talking about when it's saying technologies that are in there. That's exactly what it's talking about. Okay, that what kind this I keep going off the board, that's why my erasing's not working. There we go. That's what it's talking about. Okay. Now, there we go. Okay, I've already mentioned this, what L1, L2, and L3 cache are. We've talked about how cache has been evolving and how much you're paying for different kinds of cache that comes with the CPU. That was really, in the previous chapter, we talked mainly about L1, L2, and L3 cache, and that is static RAM. Again, dynamic RAM is what we're really getting into, and that's the RAM on the motherboard that we're putting in as our DIMMs that we're going to talk about how to check those, how to correct them, how to buy them to upgrade our performance. So that's the RAM that we're talking about for the remainder of this discussion. Now, there's different kinds of dynamic RAM, and in fact, the video that we're going to see from the textbook talks about EDO RAM. EDO RAM is old, and this is EDO RAM right here. And it's old enough that I would say that if it's in your PC, you need to upgrade your PC. They go in differently. They're really old. If you'd like to have some as a keychain, I'd be more than happy to give you some old EDO RAM. So really, I don't care about EDO RAM. It's too old to really worry about in current PCs. Really, where we're at right now, what I would consider old in current PCs is when we're talking about normal 168 pin right here SDRAM. Now, SDRAM, really we're talking about the Pentium 3 and Pentium 2 range. Its telltale sign when you look at a piece of SDRAM is that it has two notches in it, right there and right there. And the speed of this RAM originally it started out at 66 megahertz and then evolved to 100 and then evolved further to 133 megahertz. That's the speed of SDRAM. Okay? And again, not really current. We have it in our Pentium 3s. We have it in some of our Pentium 4s, particularly those GX 240s in the library all use SDRAM, but other than those older machines, most of our machines are past SDRAM at this point because it was a Pentium 3 memory. It did end up, like I said, in some Pentium 4s, but mostly Pentium 4s went into DDR RAM right here. Okay. See if I can clear this all off. I wrote everywhere, so I may not be able to get it all in one swipe. There we go. So what we're looking at, we've got, as I said, two notches, telltale sign of SDRAM. It is important that you be able to tell the difference because when I tell you, hey, I need 2 sticks of SDRAM, you need to be able to differentiate just from picking it up that this is the difference. I guarantee it's a test question that you're going to see that. Okay. Oops, I was pushing the button when I was drawing. So that's SDRAM. Then DDR RAM, it's really hard to tell the difference between the different kinds of DDR RAM because really the only thing that you see different is there's one notch instead of two in DDR RAM. And when you go from DDR to DDR2 to DDR3, it's still one notch. The notch just migrates a little bit, moves a little bit more, it moves a little bit more. So there's no way just picking it up unless there's a good sticker label on there. It's hard to tell the difference between the 3 different kinds of RAM. Okay. Obviously, they moved faster and faster. Now, in my opinion, these are the 2 prevalent kinds of RAMs that you're going to see anywhere. The last kind is Rambus over here. Rambus did never really take on, and you can't see it very well because this black line right here is covering it up. But there are 2 notches in Rambus right in the middle. Okay, and as you saw, or you will see in the video from the textbook, that has to be put in pairs. You can't just buy one of these and put it in. You either have to put in a repeater piece and the other one, or 2 pieces of Rambus, whereas with SDRAM and with DDR RAM, you can just put in 1 stick if you want to just put in 1 stick. So those visually are the different kinds of RAM we're going to look at, and we're going to look at it a little closer. This is a SDRAM, and they have 2 notches, okay? It's important. This is a stomper thing for me. It has 2 notches. It comes in speeds of, really, start out 66. I challenge you to find some of that. It's 100 or 133. And good RAM will go either speed. It will detect the speed of your motherboard and switch between 100 and 133 if you've got a motherboard that only does one or the other. Okay. Now, if I'm looking at this one, it's synchronous 100 megahertz CL2 PC 100, which means it's a 100 megahertz piece of SD-RAM. Again, 2 notches. Have I said that enough times? 2 notches here that you can tell SD-RAM. It's got 168 pins on a normal piece of SD-RAM, and I can see further down here that this is a 256 megabyte SD-RAM DIMM. Without the stickers telling me what kind they are, I cannot just tell. I actually have a large number of memory in our drawer that do not explain how much memory is on there. And the only way for us to tell is to actually put it in a PC and look in the BIOS to see what kind of memory it is. Okay, so this is our lowest SD-RAM. Because really DDR, DDR2, and DDR3 is SD-RAM. But when you say the word SD-RAM, you're really normally talking about the original, because usually you use the term DDR, DDR2, and DDR3 to explain the other ones. So this is SD-RAM, 2 notches. Next, we're looking at some sticks of DDR. Now, 1 notch is all you've got. Okay. Again, these have a decent sticker. These are 512 megabytes of error-correcting PC2700 CL2.5 SD-RAM. Okay. Other than the sticker, you can't tell without running the software thing that we're going to talk about in one of the videos. DDR3, looking at, or DDR2, looking at it, I can't tell. Again, 1 notch. The notch is slightly offset. You can't put DDR1 into a DDR2 slot or vice versa without really cranking on it and ruining your motherboard. So if you find yourself breaking a piece of plastic when you put it in, you probably just ruined something by trying to put the wrong one in. This one says right here what kind it is. It's a 2 gigabyte of DDR2 DIMM. And here's a picture of DDR3. No label or anything on here, but again, 1 notch on that one as well. Okay? So there's some different technologies out there, whether it's synchronous, double data rate is a new kind, and DDR, and you can see it's DDR SD-RAM, but usually you use the terms SD-RAM, DDR, DDR2, and DDR3 when you're talking about those speeds. Okay? And then RAM bus, and like I said, RAM bus really is not used that much anymore. Most PCs are using DDR anymore. Okay? And you can see from just look at this chart, when we're looking at RAM, this doesn't even touch the DDR2 and DDR3 speeds that are out there now. This makes it look like DRAM's faster, but the textbook's a little out of date with the RAM and the speeds of the RAM. Okay? Now, some other terms that there, whether they have error checking, whether they do parity, those terms, they're important because you can't put in error checking memory in a motherboard that doesn't use error checking. They're not interchangeable, even though you've got the right speed, even though you've got the right type as far as DDR or DDR2. If you've got the wrong thing as far as error checking and parity, it's not going to work. Okay? Now, the way it works with parity is that there's 8 bits in a byte, but really, when you look at it, it's got 9, and the last bit, we'll pretend I did 9 of them. The last one down here at the end is to check the parity of the rest of them. Okay? I don't need you to know how to compute parity, how to figure out what the 9th bit is. I just need you to know that when it comes to ECC and non-ECC memory, they are not interchangeable. So you need to know what your motherboard takes. You need to know what you're buying to make sure you're getting the right kind of memory. In general, parity and error checking is something that's only purchased for servers because it's more expensive. Oops, I went backwards instead of forwards. Okay, that is not true of CAS latency or CL. Okay, all that really is saying how fast are the rows and the columns accessed for a particular piece of memory, because they need to be at the same speed of the motherboard, and the faster they're accessed, or the lower the latency. Latency is meaning wait time, okay? The lower the latency, the faster it is, okay? So important. A low number on latency is good. Okay, so when I'm looking at those numbers, if I saw a CL of 2.5 versus a CL of 3, higher is bad, not good. That means you're waiting longer for the information to come back. Okay, so it's in the columns and the rows of your memory. All of them are little spots that information is put in. How long does the motherboard have to wait for that information to get out of that spot? Okay. And then clock cycles is the number of cycles it takes to read or write from a column or row of data. Okay? Memory speeds are rated in a number of ways. Okay? Speeds in nanoseconds. Okay, how fast can it get information back and forth? Megahertz, how many cycles does it make per second? Okay? Which is related directly to the motherboard. This is the one term that we're totally used to, hopefully by now, that the motherboard speed, the front side bus speed, and the memory communicate at the exact same rate. So if those things, if we want them to be the fastest, we want this to be high, okay, because we know it's doing the most number of cycles per second. Okay, also, and it's kind of a misnomer in the chapter it talks about memory speed. The speed of the PC is directly related to the amount of memory that's installed. Particularly with Windows, we talked about how it uses the memory a little bit. But basically, the more memory that it has, the less it has to rely on the hard drive, the more it gets loaded into primary storage, which is the memory, and the less it has to access that slower secondary storage, which is the hard drive. Okay? So all those things affect the speed of the memory. It's affected that how many nanoseconds, how fast it is, along with how many cycles per second that it goes at, how much memory there is, what kind of technologies it uses, what the clock rating is, the CAS latency rating is. If the latency is low, low is good. Okay? Because latency means wait. And then whether it uses error correcting, parity, or non-error correcting, non-parity memory. Okay, so it's either it uses parity and corrects and checks errors, or it doesn't. Okay, so those two terms go together. Memory speeds. This is a nice chart to let you see kind of the difference between some things. When we're looking, here's the top is fast, the bottom is slow in this chart. So as we're looking at things, if the total RAM is more, the PC probably runs faster. Okay? If it uses better technologies, in other words, it's using DDR versus SDRAM versus EDO, it's going to be faster. If the rated speed is higher, it's going to be faster. If the rated cycles are higher, more megahertz, it's going to be faster. Those numbers, PC 2100, 2700, 3200, the higher that number is, the faster it is. And then non-parity memory is faster than error-checking parity memory because it's got to do a separate parity computation every single time it writes a byte of data. So it's definitely faster to have non-ECC, non-parity memory. And then, like I said, with the CL or the RS, the clock or the column or the row latency numbers, the lower the number, means the less it has to wait, and so the faster the memory is. So this is a nice chart to see, to give yourself an idea of what do these things mean, what is fast, okay? So to make a PC fast, you want to have the best total RAM, the best kind of RAM, you want to have the highest megahertz rating, you want to have a non-error correcting, and you want to have the lowest CL and RL numbers for that row and column latency. Okay, I've got a nice video that I talk about matching the memory to the motherboard. We talked about in this in class when we were talking about motherboards in general. The big thing is that you want the fastest memory for your motherboard, because the motherboard speed is going to go at the speed they're going to sync up. So if it takes DDR2, and that speed, it says it'll take a 533 or an 800, you want to buy the 800 if you can. You want to get the same error correcting type. You want to make sure those things match up. And I'm going to stop this right here to talk about the little testing thing, that video I've got showing how to test the memory to make sure it matches up. Well, you know what, I'm going to finish up and then I'll come back to that. I'll do that at the end. So there's going to be a separate video on a site I use and how I make sure that I'm matching up those things. Besides just going to the motherboard site, which is obviously good, but most people don't know the model number of the motherboard that's inside their PC, which makes it not as easy as just going to the site and saying, hey, I got this kind of memory. Okay. When I'm reading an ad about memory, and this is online, I haven't seen many ads, although you could go to someplace like Circuit City or something like that to read it. The speed, size, and type are important. Okay. Most ads don't talk about everything that you need to know about the features on your motherboard. So if you're going to go and try to buy it at Best Buy, it would be best to use one of the testers that I'm going to show you here in a second, and print that out. And when you go, if you need it today, because you're not going to get probably the best price at a store as you are at an online, but you may not be able to wait for it. So you have to make sure that these speeds and types match the motherboard, which I'm not going to beat into the ground because we really already talked about this. They have to match for it to work. Just like the CPU had to match the socket to go in the motherboard, as well as matching the rated speeds that the motherboard can handle between the CPU, the same thing is true with memory. Those things have to match up for them to work. Okay? Installing memory, we're going to go through the little video on it. This is obviously SDRAM because there's 2 notches. But it's really easy. They just go straight down in, and these little clips they're showing right here snap in. But we're going to look at the video here in just a second on how that works. Okay, taking them in and out, it's the same way. These 2 latches get moved out, and then you just pull it right up, or they should be out, and you push the module down, and they'll automatically snap in when you put memory into a PC. It's one of the easiest upgrades that you can do. Takes about 5 minutes. And when you're putting them in, this is a RAM bus. It's got those 2 notches in the middle. When you put them in, I do exactly like this. Use my thumb with pressure on the outside of them and push straight down, and then these will just come in and snap right into the little notches that you can see right there and there on the memory. Okay, that's it for reading section number 1. We're going to look at a couple videos now on how to look at memory, how to purchase memory, and how to test memory, which is really an introduction to the next section of reading, which you should have already read by the time you're watching this video. Okay, second section of reading, or the second half of the chapter. Our goal on this review is to understand how to find, purchase, and install memory. And I should add on here how to test memory as well, because one of the reasons you might buy memory is to replace bad memory in your PC, or you might want to know whether there's anything wrong with the memory in your PC. So in this section, we're also going to talk about how to test it and analyze your memory to see that as well. So that's one of the important things for this section. Okay, so how to know if you have the right memory, and how do you know if you have the right motherboard? I have a video on this that we're going to look at because I've already done it and set it all up. So I'm just going to stop right here, and we're going to take a quick look at that video and how I look to see what kind of memory I need for a specific motherboard.
This segment is about upgrading memory. The first step in upgrading memory is to find out how much you have. So to do that, from Windows, we'll click on Start and then right-click on My Computer and select Properties from the drop-down menu. In the System Properties window, General tab, we can read that we have 512 megabyte of RAM installed. Now that's usually enough for a Windows XP system, but for improved performance we could jump it all the way up to 1 gigabyte. The next step in upgrading memory is to open the case and see what modules are already installed, and that's what we'll do next. We're upgrading memory. The second step in upgrading memory is to open the case. So we shut down the system and open the side of the case so we can see what memory modules are already installed and how many modules are installed. I see that this case has 2 banks for memory. Each bank has 2 slots, and there are 2 DIMMs. One slot is used in the first bank, and the first slot in the second bank is used. This motherboard has dual channel memory. I know that because I looked it up in the motherboard manual. So I know for dual channeling to work, I have to install DIMMs in pairs. So we need 2 DIMMs to install in the 2 empty slots instead of a single DIMM. If we install just a single DIMM, we would lose our dual channeling performance and it would revert back to single channeling. The next thing is to decide what memory modules to buy. The best way to know that is to buy what's already in the case. And to know that, I need to look on the label on one of the modules. So I'm going to pop the sides open on the DIMM slot and pull a module out. I was careful to touch the side of the case before I touched the DIMM, in order to reduce any ESD. Also, when you're handling a DIMM, be careful not to touch the chips on the DIMM or to touch the base of the slot. I look on the label on the slot on the module for the important information. I see that it's a 256 megabyte DIMM, which I already knew that. It's DDR RAM. It's running at 400 megahertz or 3200 PC rating, and CAS latency is CL3. And that's information that's important to us. The next step is we'll go to the internet and find 256 megabyte PC rated 3200 CAS latency 3 memory. And let's do that next.
Okay. In the video from the textbook, they talked about opening up the PC to find out what kind of memory you had, which certainly could work, although to me it seems like a lot of work for little return, since you're not buying it right then, you're not at the store, and why would you open up your PC if you didn't need to? Plus, when this video was made, they talked about EDO RAM, which is too old for you to want to have in your PC, SD-RAM, which is getting the same place as EDO, RAMBus RAM, RD-RAM, which again is old, and then DDR, which is really the base level for Pentium 4 memory. Those 4 kinds of memory you can look at and tell the difference of, but you cannot tell the difference from DDR, DDR1, DDR2, DDR3. And if there's no sticker saying what kind it is, which I've had lots of RAM that had no sticker on it, it would be very hard for you to determine exactly what your PC needs. Instead, I prefer to use this scanner from Memory 10, which I have on your section under Managing Memory as a link. This is something that's best run in Internet Explorer, and although you see me in Firefox in the top left, I'm really opening this in Internet Explorer. So now you can see if you look on the tab, it's really an Internet Explorer tab open into Firefox. This is Memory 10. Their prices are okay. I'm not saying they're always going to be the best, but they're relatively close, and it's not a bad place to order from, although I usually find what I need here and then look for the cheapest, and sometimes it's here and sometimes it's not. Anyway, I come here and you can see in the top left-hand side it has a link to Scan My System. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, most time it does. So I click the Scan My System and it says if the dialog does not appear or you receive an error message, click here. So I'm going to click there, say I want to run it again, and it's going through doing a scan of my computer and telling it what kind of PC and what kind of motherboard I have. So it's already come back and shown right here my results. I have a computer make as a MSI 7514. That's the motherboard model right there. It says what version I have, it says what kind of CPU I have, and it says what kind of slots I have. In my case, I've got 4 slots, and they're all filled with 1 gigabit cards, but otherwise it would say which ones are empty. Now, my PC doesn't match their search, so it doesn't tell me exactly what kind of memory I need. If you go there on your laptop that you're using in the class, it probably will tell you what kind of memory you need. And it'll tell you exactly what I need. In fact, we're going to go look at another video of another computer that I'm going to scan here in a second to see what it shows you. But my point here is it doesn't have to show you this. It showed me what was important, MS7514. If I go and copy that and drop it in my search box up top, I'll be able to go right to the, I could go to any of these sites that sell the MS7514 to look up the specs on it to see what kind of memory it needs. I can see right here it supports 4 unbuffered DIMMs, DDR2 up to 1066 if I overclock, which I think I've said in class I don't like overclocking, so I would be looking at DDR2 800. It holds up to 16 gigabytes, so it'll take 4 gigabyte ones. I only have 1 gigabyte ones in mine. So right there I've just found what kind of memory I need to buy without opening up my PC, without powering it down, without worrying about shocking it, without worrying about anything, just from using this one tool that tells me what kind of motherboard I have. And like I said, if it matched up right, it would come down here. And again, all I did was take the model and copy that, put it in my Google window on a new tab, and then hit my search, and it shows a whole bunch. Now, if I wanted to go straight to the MSI site, I could by just adding MSI in here. I would probably be more likely to get straight to the MSI site, which you can see I did not get to. But any of these that sell this motherboard are going to give me the information that I need to know on the kind of memory. I'm going to a different one right now. This is actually the Crucial site, saying this is a memory sales site saying what kind of memory I need, so I can get 4 gigabit DIMMs for $189 at this one. And it tells me right down here, if I look lower in the site, what kind of DDR it takes. It takes DDR2, PC2, 5300, 6400, or 8500, and that's my 800 that I'll be looking at. Non-ECC only, and really most of it's non-ECC only now. You read about that in the chapter. That's error correcting memory. And if you put ECC memory in a non-ECC motherboard, you're going to get that beeping sound. It's not going to work. So you need to make sure that is always noted when you look for the kind of memory that you need. So I'm going to do another video here in just a second on a different PC showing what it looks like when you get the right kind of memory.
We're on a one of the classroom laptops right now, and I'm going
again, using Internet Explorer for this tool, down to the MemoryX scanner. And choosing to scan my system. And if it doesn't happen fast enough, I just click the here, say I want to run. And again, run the scan. And it's scanning the system and going back to the database at memory 10. And then displaying the information on this particular PC. Okay, this is a good example. It shows that it's a Dell Latitude 600, which is exactly what it is. It shows me the motherboard model right here. Then it says it's got 2 slots, and inside it are installed 2 512 megabyte memory cards. If I wanted to buy more, I could scroll down here and see that the maximum memory is 2 gig, so I could put 2 1 gig cards in here instead of 2 512s. And then it tells me how much I can buy it for there. A gig of RAM with them costs $49.98, so if I wanted to buy 2 of them, I could spend $100 and buy 2 more. Now, the important thing here is that it tells me everything I really need to know about the memory as well. It's a PC 2700 DDR333 SODIMM. So if I really wanted to, I could take this information right here and just as easily go somewhere else. And in this case, I've gone to pricewatch.com and I've put in that what I just cut right into there, PC 2700 DDR333 SODIMM, and I'm going to click Find It. I could just as easily clicked on RAM right here and then gone through and looked at SODIMM's PC 2700 and seen how much I can get it for there as well. Just another option. I'm not sure if this search is going to find what I want or not. We'll see here in a second. Okay, now these are 512s. Let's see how inexpensive a gigabyte can be. These are like 256s. There's 1 gig for $31 there. The other thing I can do is I can just go through and go through their regular tools. By going this way, I can just go look under their notebook memory DDR, since I know it's DDR, not DDR2. And I can look right here at a gigabyte of SODIMM DDR PC 2700 is 3173. And if I wanted to go there, I could just click on first choice memory to look at their memory and to confirm, because as we know from looking at other things in the past, sometimes you go to something from PriceWatch and the item's not actually there or isn't the exact item that had listed on PriceWatch, and our web page just failed to open. And because that didn't work, I went to the second choice, which was just a little bit more expensive. So I can get 1 gigabyte PC27 DDR 200 pin SODIMM notebook laptop memory from this manufacturer. It is non-ECC unbuffered, which is what we wanted, for $31.74, which if I compared that back to our original thing from memory 10 was just a little bit more expensive than what they had, $49.98, but over the course of, if I did all of our laptops to bring us up to 2 gig, that would be a substantial savings. So just because this site has a great memory searcher doesn't mean I'm saying buy from it, but it certainly is a really nice way to do it as opposed to opening up your PC, pulling stuff out, and trying to figure out what kind of memory it takes. Okay, so we've looked at the book's view on how to find memory. It's kind of short and sweet. Mine, I like to use that Memory 10 configurator. I don't know, I think it's a configuration tool to find your kind of motherboard, and then you can either go right there at Memory 10 and purchase it, or you can move on to PriceWatch and search for it. You go to Newegg, whatever site you use, and you may have a site that you've bought stuff from before that you prefer to. It doesn't really matter. The important thing is you get the right kind of memory for the kind of motherboard that you have. Once you've determined that, you'll know from the memory test or from looking up your motherboard how many slots you have in your motherboard and how you want to put those into your motherboard. Now, when I look at a particular motherboard, here's a picture of a motherboard, and if I was in class right now, I'd ask you what kind it was without letting you see the picture right here, but oops, that's too late. I should know from looking at it, it's an AM2 motherboard without reading the thing up here that obviously says it is, because we know what the motherboard socket, just from looking at that, I know that's an AM2 motherboard. Now, we're talking about memory. Now this shows that this particular motherboard uses DDR2 DIMMs, and it's got 4 memory slots. Now, I could look it up in the manual, but it would tell me exactly what I'm going to say right now. Every motherboard they've ever used that has colored memory slots are intended to put them in the same color together. So if I had 2 sticks of memory for this PC, I would want to put both of them either in these yellow ones. These are yellow for my colorblind student in the class. And I've got 2 red ones here. I want to put them in pairs because if they're dual channel memory, if I've got a dual channel capable motherboard and I've got dual channel RAM that I'm putting into it, I'm going to get the best performance out of putting them in the slots that go together. If I put one in here, if I put one in here and put one in there, showing you a red and a yellow one, then I am not going to get the same performance. And in fact, many motherboards are going to say, right when you boot it up, that it's going to say, hey, you've got dual channel RAM not set up in the right configuration. And it tells you right when you boot up that you don't have it in the right slots. So if you get it in the right slots the right way, you're going to get the best performance out of it. That being said, it's important to note that if I was going to put in 1 gigabyte of RAM in this PC, I would get better performance if I put in a 512 and a 512 into my 2 dual channel slots than if I put in one gigabyte module. Now, if I do that and I want to upgrade to some higher number later, I can put the next 2 I buy here. I would not buy 4 256s if I wanted a gig, because the slight change I'm going to get in performance is not going to outweigh the fact that I got to throw 2 of them away if I want to upgrade. So I would take advantage of dual channel, but I would do it by buying 2 512s to get to a gig as opposed to 4 256s, which would get me the same place, but now I've got lower speed RAM. Lower sized RAM that if I upgrade later, I'm going to have to throw away. Whereas in this case, I've still got 2 free open slots, and if I want to upgrade later, I just put it in those 2 slots. So I could go from 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 by putting 2 1 gigabits in here, and would not have to throw away my other RAM. So that would be something that I would point out for you. Okay, I already looked at this slide last time on the different kinds of RAM that we have the potential of using. As I said before, these two and this one I don't see very much anymore. We're looking mainly at DDR and SDRAM SIMs or DIMMs anymore, not the other ones. So you're normally looking at these kind of DIMMs here. Okay, RIMs are fairly uncommon and SIMs are fairly uncommon as well anymore. And I already showed you this picture last class of SDRAM modules showing they have 2 notches, and then DDR showing they have 1 notch. And I'm going to pass by the other ones because you really can't tell the difference between the different kinds. But I am going to point out that the right memory has to go with the right motherboard. And let's see, I think I have a link here right to that motherboard site. So here's that Memory 10 configuration utility. As I said before, it works best with Internet Explorer. Now, I've already talked about this, different kinds of RAM, whether DDR and SDRAM and RAM bus, what kind goes with which. DDR is the most prevalent and it's the fastest kind of RAM. And as I said before on the previous lesson, this chart is way, way, way behind. Obviously, it goes much faster than 400 megahertz. This was the original DDR. The textbook doesn't even talk about DDR2 and DDR3, which obviously are much faster than DDR1. They pick up at 533, where this drops off at 400 for normal DDR. And it was called double data rate, DDR, because really these went up to 133, and this picked up at 200 and 266, and so it was double as fast as normal SDRAM. Talked about how to put those in. We're going to look at a video on how to put those in, as well as a video on how to test them and how to figure out which memory is good and or bad here in a minute too. And that will go into these items on how to actually put the RAM in and take the RAM out. We're going to go ahead and finish or watch those videos now in the class. When we're done with this, you guys will have the rest of the class to work on your PowerPoint presentations on your memory that go with your motherboard.
Okay, we are installing SIMs, DIMMs, and RIMs in motherboards. This motherboard uses SIMs. To remove a SIM out of a motherboard, open the latches. The SIM will fall backward in the slot. Pick it up and out. Do the same thing. Lift the latch, pick it up and out. Removing from back forward, but installing from front backward. So put the SIM into the slot all the way in and then push forward until the latches on both sides click into position. You can feel it slide and sink into the slot solidly. Put the second one in place. Check the latches to make sure they're in place. A DIMM is easier. Just remove the latches on both sides and lift the DIMM up and out of the slot. In fact, as you push the latches forward, the DIMM pops up. Pop it up. To put it back in the slot, position it in the slot, push down until the latches themselves pop themselves into place, like this on both sides. Being careful not to rock the DIMM. A RIM. RIMs are installed. Something has to be in every slot. If it's not a RIM, it has to be a CRIM or continuous RIM. Lay the continuous RIMs aside. To remove a RIM, open the latch. The RIM pops up. You can take it out. To install it back in, position it into the slot, push down until the latches lock into place on both sides. Install the CRIMs in the same way. Push down until they lock into side. And as you're installing memory, be very careful to protect the modules against ESD by using an ESD bracelet or some other method. And don't touch the chips themselves if at all possible. And that's installing SIMs, DIMMs, and RIMs.